So Emily, I mean, just kind of talk about you guys played so many matches the first couple weeks, and then you got a bigger break before SMU. How did that kind of change how y'all prepared, and then ultimately how y'all played?
I think it helped a lot having so many games at the beginning. We learned a lot kind of about each other and everything that we needed in those early games. And then we had those 10 days to really build on what we learned in those first few games, which really helped us this past weekend. I know we weren't very successful this weekend, but I still think we've learned so much about individual players and players as a team, like everybody together.
Who specifically do you think you've maybe learned the most about or are the most impressed with?
Probably all the freshmen. I think even like our bench, like a lot of freshmen have been, especially the DSs, like four of them now that kind of rotate all together. There's Abby, Emily, Courtney. Kind of those are like the big three that I feel like every time they're put on the court, they do what they need to do, and they're okay with being interchanged and switched out and just doing anything that they can to help the team.
Kind of throughout non-con, how do you feel like you've kind of ingrained yourself into this team, just trying to figure out that right side?
It's been a lot of fun, for sure. I've had to learn, it's a completely different system transferring from Tennessee. Like, everything we do, I feel like, is different, which is a good thing. It took me a little bit of time to kind of learn everything and get used to it, but I feel like I've established myself pretty well, and I hope to be like a solid leader and go-to on this team.
And then getting the win to at least finish that off and get a win to end it at least, did that kind of help y'all
So much.
Bounce off those first two?
Yeah. And the first two, I feel like weren't even really, I mean, the SMU game, it was definitely a good game, but I feel like we were still better than what we performed. And the LSU game was just, it was frustrating because I know we're better than that game. And then the Corpus game, the first set, it was like, all right, like it's kind of figured out a little bit. And then once we started to click and mesh and figure everything out, it worked really well.
That SMU game in particular, I mean, lose the first set the way y'all did, but then get up 2-1, but then ultimately lose. Just kind of how did y'all, I mean, I know it ended up being a loss, but how do you kind of balance the up and down of a match?
Yeah, it was tough, especially because I believe we were the better team, and like the first set was kind of a mishap, and then the second and the third were good, and then that fourth they just got that, it was like 6 or 7 point run that kind of just gave them a lot of momentum, and then going into the fifth set we couldn't really pull it out. But again, I feel like we learned a lot from it about our team as a whole and what it takes to win, and we can't let runs like that happen. If we, like, all sets are won usually by 2 or 3 points, like they can't go on that many point runs.
And then going into Kansas, just what have you guys seen out of them for your own performance that you're focused on, but also for the team?
Yeah. Well, right now we've mostly been working on like ourselves, like what we need to do in the gym to get better. Like, because if we can't figure ourselves out on our side of the court, doesn't really matter what the other team's doing if we can't work well together. I know they went up like 3 spots in the polls this week, which is it's just exciting. Like playing in the Big 12, having so many teams that are ranked, like it's just an opportunity every week to play an amazing team. And I know that we can be a really good team if we just kind of mesh everything together and get it going. Yeah.
Just kind of how do you prepare for a Kansas team like that?
Well, like Emily said, we're spending the big majority of our time on us. You know, this is still we know how young we are, but we still have players like Emily and other transfers that haven't been with this group before. So there's so much newness to our group, and we've played 12 matches, but it really doesn't feel like we've played 12 matches. I feel like we just need so much time to keep working on ourselves. So in the office, we're prepared for Kansas. We know what we're up against, and we've got a game plan. But in the gym today, we won't be talking about Kansas. It's still every minute we get to work on ourselves. That's what we're doing.
How do you feel like the team played at SMU? I know Caitlin led the team in kills each week, but then had a couple losses before getting the win. So how do you feel like overall that whole weekend ended up going?
You know, the SMU match was kind of our season. You know, a big swings in both directions. You know, moments of really, really good play, and then times when we just didn't look very good, but we were competing the whole way. And so, you know, when you go down on the road against a really good team like SMU is, it's hard to dig yourselves out. And so I was happy to get up 2-1, and then it was a real match, and we saw them respond. And so, you know, we walked away disappointed, but at the same time, that was a quality effort, you know, all things considered. I didn't like how we played against LSU. I thought we were pretty flat the whole day, and then the next day we were good. You know, the big thing for us is we just haven't been able to stay out of our own way. And so we'll get into these series of points where we're just giving points away. We can't control ourselves from the serve line. We get a little anxious out of system. And so, this is the maturity that we're looking for, to be able to manage individual moments, not overreact to things, and just stay composed. And when we do that, things look pretty good. We know we're talented. It's that experience piece and just being able to manage those situations that we're struggling with.
I know it has been an up and down season, and yeah, you're right, that SMU match probably did symbolize it. But what have been the ups, I guess, of this team that you've continued to see, even as that you can lean on maybe when there is some immaturity and you're like, what's going on here?
Yeah, if we look at the players individually, this is where we get really excited, because we can see the talent, we can see the progress that they're making. It's just putting them all together and getting all of them in the lineup to be able to play to their talent at the same time. That's the challenge. And so, we're leaning on players like Caitlin a lot right now, and I was really thrilled with how she played. This was one of her best weekends. She was outstanding. And then, we see the same thing. Emily's starting to figure things out, and she's we brought her here to be a big piece of the team, and she's starting to play to that level. So it's incremental with how we're progressing. I think we're better than we were a couple weeks ago, but we got to do it in all situations, and that's the learning piece right now.
Do you think Caitlin, having a 24 kill game, but then also leading the team the rest of the way, is that a little more intentional that you guys have tried to do?
Well, she was just really efficient this weekend. I don't know that our distribution of her was different than it has been. She was just really effective. So I think in the SMU match, we figured out pretty quick that she was on, and we probably pumped more balls her way than normal. But throughout the rest of the weekend, I think we're pretty balanced.
Kansas, Reagan Cooper coming back. What are maybe the emotions for? I know a lot of this team has gone in general, but for some of the players that were here and also yourself, just how do you kind of balance that?
I don't know. I don't want to speak for the rest of the team, because, again, we hadn't really talked about Kansas, and there's not that many players that are here that were with her last year. I love Reagan. Everybody knows that, and we had 3 great years with her. I love her family, and it was crushing to see her leave, but at the same time, I understand why. And but that team is way more than just Reagan. So that's a really good team, probably the best team they've had in quite a while. So, they're going to come at us, and that game plan is going to be about a lot more than just Reagan.
Coming back to the United Supermarkets Arena, y'all actually had a lot of games here early, of course, but what does it feel like for this team to be able to come back here for a couple games?
Well, we need to get back. We were 6-1 at home the first 2 weekends, and we liked playing here, and I thought we played pretty good volleyball here. So, it's going to be nice to get back.
Well, one question, I guess Reese Rhodes, Caitlin Cochran, y'all have been kind of balancing that. Is there any expectation on how you'll kind of balance that, or maybe not something you'd want to answer? But.
Well, we feel like we have 2 starting setters right now, and they both have things that they're really strong with, and things they're still trying to work on, and that's a good question. I think we're in a situation where the 2 of them are going to be fighting this out, and it may take a minute before one truly has it over the other. But we like that we've got 2 really good setters. Yeah.